We're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're also back in the car, hopefully just for this one episode, but we've got a lot of news to catch up on from last week. I'm almost done traveling. I'm moving into a new apartment. So let's talk about all the crazy news that came out last week. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. So let me catch you up real quick with what's been going on. So lately I've been traveling the last week or so. I went up to Charlotte, visited some race shops, bought a giant piece of Matt Kenseth's 2018 show car right there. Went to the Hall of Fame, first time I've ever been there. Filmed a video there, so if you missed it, I uploaded that a few days ago. But then of course, I went up to Bristol, Tennessee for the night race, my first time ever to Bristol, and it was everything I hoped it would be. I should have the vlog for that up tomorrow. It was a fun one. Got to go down in the garage area, pit road before the race, even during the race. Had great seats to watch all the action. Did a bunch of stuff before. We had a big YouTuber meetup. Thanks again to everyone who came out to the first ever NASCAR YouTube meetup that we had at Bristol before the race. It was early in the day, but we still had like over 100 people come up to the booth over the little short period of time we were there. Signed autographs, which was crazy. Took pictures with a bunch of you guys, said hi, talked racing. Really, really cool to see all you guys out there. So thanks everyone who came out. And if you weren't able to make it to this one, hopefully, this one was a success. Hopefully we get to do this a few more times, maybe next year, maybe even later this year. And then the last big thing for me, when I was in Charlotte last week, I was invited on the Sunday Money podcast, got the hat right down there. Podcast with NASCAR Cup driver Corey LaJoy, Daryl Mott on there. It's an MRN radio podcast. I was invited to come to the MRN studio, record with them, talked about NASCAR, talked about YouTube and online, how that's helping NASCAR grow its fan base, all that type of great stuff. So it was a huge honor for me to be invited to MRN to do that show, and it was a great time being on it. So I'll put links down in the description. Everyone go listen to that episode, show them some love because they're doing a great show down there. It was really awesome to get to talk to those guys, so go check that out if you missed it. But that's it. That's all the big updates for me, but it's been an insane week. Let's talk about the NASCAR news, because the NASCAR news is arguably even crazier from the last 7 or 8 days. Now let's start off with the more serious news. I'm sure most of you heard by now, but Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his family unfortunately were involved in a plane crash in Elizabethton, Tennessee earlier last week. According to reports, their private jet bounced off the runway, ended up skidding off the runway, caught fire, and if you've seen photos of the wreckage, it's amazing that nobody was hurt, because yeah, no one, Dale Jr., his wife, his young daughter, the pilot, nobody was injured, so that's incredible. So extremely thankful that everybody made it out okay. Dale Jr. though did take the week off. He didn't call the race for NBC. Now he is supposed to race the Xfinity race at Darlington this weekend. As far as I've seen, no reports suggest that he's pulled out of that race. Presumably Dale Jr. is still gonna make his return again and race one more time there in Darlington, but I don't know. After a traumatizing event like that, I'm sure it was, who could blame him if he actually pulled out? Maybe we see somebody else in the 8 car at Darlington, who knows? But needless to say, an extremely scary and very shocking incident, but amazing that everyone was made it out of that okay. I guess people, police, everybody's still trying to figure out exactly what went wrong, exactly what caused them to go off the runway and crash like that. But I don't know, I guess until that is made public, we won't know anymore. Just amazing that everyone was safe, and thankfully nobody was seriously injured. So yeah, let's move on from that. As far as some actual NASCAR racing related news, silly season has fully taken shape officially. Here in the middle of August, we have some big stories coming out now. David Ragan suddenly revealed last week that he will be stepping away from full-time NASCAR racing at the end of this year. His main reason, he said, was to mainly spend more time with family. He didn't rule out the possibility of running maybe some one-off races next year or in the coming years. Some not even NASCAR related races. He could run other motorsports, just one-offs here and there. So he's not done racing entirely. He specified it's full-time. He's done with full-time NASCAR, but he still wants to race. He's still fairly young, but he wanted to spend more time with his family. So that was the reason he gave. Unless something surprising happens later this season, David Ragan will step away, a 2-time NASCAR Cup Series winner. He won at Daytona in 2011. He won at Talladega in 2013. Got Front Row Motorsports their first ever win as an organization. That being said, 2019 has been a very disappointing season for David Ragan. I tend to believe that might have played some role in him making this decision. He's 30th in points, and I know that's not a great team. That's not a team that's contending for wins or even top 10s or top 15s very regularly, but 30th in points is a step backwards, and I definitely think that's not what David Ragan's looking for at this point in his career. That being said, David Ragan will go down in history as a 2-time Cup Series winner, winning at 2 of the sport's most famous tracks. So, most drivers can't say that. So hope David Ragan enjoys his semi-retirement, and hopefully we see him in some different race cars, some different races next season. That'll be fun. Now, David Ragan was not the only driver to make a major silly season announcement last week. Matt Dibenedetto revealed on Twitter that he will not be racing for Levine Family Racing in 2020. He will not be in that car. Not shocking news, but still pretty disappointing. Now, he made this announcement before Bristol this last weekend, where, as you guys know, he went on to finish second, almost won that race. It was a crazy, amazing story. I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute because I haven't had time to talk about Bristol yet. I've been on the road. But yeah, he made the announcement earlier in the week last week. Again, like I said, not surprising really, because we've talked about on this show, and there's plenty of insider information, rumors going around that highly suggest a guy like Christopher Bell is likely to go to the 95 car next year. And with Matt Dibenedetto not bringing a whole lot of his own sponsorship money, it's not shocking that Dibenedetto's getting kicked out of that ride. The question is, was it a Levine Family Racing decision? Was it a Toyota decision? Was Joe Gibbs, who has, you know, Levine's an affiliate, they have alliance with Joe Gibbs Racing, similar to what Furniture Row used to have, but not quite the same scale yet. Was it Joe Gibbs' decision? Who really holds the cards in this whole deal? I know team owner Bob Levine, the owner of Levine Family Racing, went on quite the, I don't know if Twitter storm's the right word, because he was, you know, he was just kind of telling it like it is. He was replying to fans for like hours the other day. People who were critical of the team, people who were, I think in some ways, wrongfully blaming Bob Levine for not keeping Dibenedetto next year, kind of just explaining a lot of the behind the scenes. So Bob Levine kind of offered up some very transparent, just very interesting data regarding why Levine wasn't able to keep Dibenedetto. Here's some of his tweets that I found the most interesting. Here's one of his tweets. The sponsor money we've gotten this year would not pay the tire bill for 10 races. You can make up all kinds of what ifs, but they don't pay the bills. He elaborated on that a little bit. He says, we had Procore when Matt arrived, that's one of their major sponsors, and Dumont also. We have no money from Toyota. Estepp USA, I believe that's how you say that, we got this year, paid for less than the cost of one race. Actually, Estepp responded to that. We are disappointed to see Estepp mentioned specifically in a less than positive manner. We consider our agreement private, but to avoid any further confusion, we'd like to note that our investment in Matt Dibenedetto via Levine Family Racing was significantly more than the implied cost of tires. So I'm not sure who to believe exactly there, but I give a lot of credit actually to Bob Levine for taking on the critics and answering questions and just being very blunt. Because I think Bob Levine would love to have Matt Dibenedetto in the 95 next year, but the sport's a business, and if Dibenedetto's not bringing in outside sponsorship money, if there's not enough outside companies that want to support Dibenedetto financially, then at some point, yes, Bob Levine's gonna have to go with another driver. Not because he wants to, but because he has to remain financially viable. So a lot of fans don't get that, but I think most do, and Bob Levine, I give him a lot of credit for clarifying a lot of things on Twitter there, but that's very interesting to hear that the sponsorship money they've gotten this year is very little, very little. He said in another tweet I saw that it would cost roughly $15 to $18 million, he thinks, to run one competitive cup car, and he considered that on the low end. So $15 to $18 million just to run one competitive cup car, and they're not even getting enough money for tires, it sounds like. That's why they have to make a driver change. If Matt Dibenedetto was bringing in big sponsorship money, they'd probably keep him, but he's not. And a guy like Christopher Bell, with some of the sponsorship backing from Gibbs and Toyota and what he's had in the Xfinity Series, he might be able to. So people are mad at Bob Levine for bailing on Matt Dibenedetto. I can't imagine it was 100% his decision, and if it was purely a business decision. It wasn't because he thinks Dibenedetto's not a great driver. I think Dibenedetto has shown, especially in the last few races, that he can be a great driver, especially if given a good opportunity. It just comes down to dollars and cents. We've seen this already. Was Eric Jones really a better driver than Matt Kenseth? No, but he cost like 10% of what Kenseth cost because of his massive veteran salary. So I think people are wrong to go after Bob Levine for this. It's a business. Barney Visser didn't want to shut down Furniture Row Racing, but he couldn't keep the team afloat and still make money, so he had to do what he had to do. So for people getting mad at Bob Levine for making the business decision here that he has to make, I think that's very unfair. So credit to Bob Levine at least for taking on the critics and just being straight up on Twitter. Using Twitter for what I think it was most intended, or at least what I like it for the most. So looking at this whole silly season thing, we now have a big name driver, I'd say Matt Dibenedetto, a guy who might be deserving of another solid top ride. We have now the 38 car at Front Row Motorsports, which is not a top ride, but we do have that car open now, an established ride on an established team that somebody could go to. Could that end up being Matt Dibenedetto's possible landing spot? Very possibly. We keep hearing rumors, but I'm still very confident that Eric Jones is going to stay with the 20 car for probably one more year. That was a rumor reported last week. They're going to sign him to a one-year deal and maybe see where it goes from there. Christopher Bell, I think, will be in the 95 next year, probably also on a one-year deal. And then we'll just see. The 38's still open. There's some SHR cars that might become open. The one car, Ganassi, could become open if Kurt Busch decides he doesn't want to come back. I don't know. There's still a lot of questions out there, but right now, for sure, 38 cars open, and we really don't know. There's really no obvious front runner to get that ride. So the last thing I want to talk about, I know there's a lot of talking. I haven't done Out of the Groove in quite a while. I want to talk a little bit about Bristol, the race itself. Obviously, I was there in person, so look forward to my vlog. I'll showcase my entire experience there. But I just want to talk about the race itself. Obviously, I was heartbroken to see Denny Hamlin get by Matt Dibenedetto. I was equally heartbroken to see Erik Jones slap the wall there with like 60 laps to go after leading and looking like he was maybe going to get that first win this season. I was really hoping he could win this thing, but when Dibenedetto took the lead, I was okay with it. I knew coming in the Toyotas were going to be really good. That's what I predicted, and then sure enough, they were. Hamlin was strong. Busch, even though he went a lap down early, he came back to take the lead later on. And then Erik Jones leading laps. Pretty much every Toyota in the field, I think, led laps, or the Gibbs cars at least, and Dibenedetto all led laps in this race. So the Toyotas were strong, and unfortunately, Hamlin was just a little better than Dibenedetto. It was Ryan Newman holding him up there that really gave Hamlin, I think, the shot he needed, but that's just Newman being Newman. People are giving Newman a hard time, and I think that's fair, but Newman was doing what he had to do. Remember, Ryan Newman coming into this race was 16th on the playoff grid. He was the last guy in. If Dibenedetto wins that race, Newman gets bumped out because Dibenedetto wins his way in. So Newman racing Dibenedetto hard there at the end, I mean, it's kind of, you hate to see it, but it's just Newman doing what he has to do. Newman's that kind of guy. Remember 2014 at Phoenix, basically wrecked Larson on the final corner to make it to Homestead. So Newman's the kind of guy, he's shown in the past, he's gonna do what he has to do to advance, and that's all he was doing there at Bristol. So I can't fault him entirely for racing like a jerk kind of at the end there, but it was tough to see, but it was still a fun race. An absolutely great race to see in person. It was everything I hoped it would be. So I'm not going to go through all the top finishes or anything. There are some storylines. Suarez leapfrogged Boyer. Boyer spun out, didn't get any stage points. Suarez finished second in one stage, got a huge boost in the points from that. So now Suarez is actually 2 points to the good. Boyer's 2 points to the bad. Johnson wrecked again, so he's almost in must-win territory at this point. He's like 26 points out with 2 races to go. He's going to need to be really good the rest of the way here. So right now, Suarez and Newman are still in. Boyer and Johnson are both out. That's crazy. But what I mainly want to do in this segment is put this race on my Groovy Gauge. Bam! Nice to see you in the passenger seat, Groovy Gauge. Glad you can make it to the show this week. But yeah, talking about Bristol, it was amazing to see in person. Coming into the weekend, NASCAR quietly, or SMI quietly, sanded off the top groove, dusted it off so that it wouldn't be as grippy. So they were trying to get all the cars around the bottom like old Bristol. And in the truck race, really nobody ventured up top. The Xfinity race, they got it worked in pretty well, the high groove. And then the Cup race, it kind of just looked like Bristol from the last couple of years. Top groove and bottom groove were pretty equal. At times people would freight train the top, at times people would freight train the bottom. Sometimes, it was perfect Bristol. This is the kind of Bristol I've really liked the last 2 years. I'm not the biggest fan of old school bottom feeding Bristol. In my opinion, that's basically just Martinsville with banking, and I like that current Bristol right now feels like its own thing. The fact that the top and the bottom are pretty equal. A few years ago when they had the progressive banking and everything and the top was the preferred line, I didn't like that much. I didn't like that everyone was around the top and the bottom was pretty much useless. I didn't like that, but I love what we have now with them adding the grip on the bottom, the PJ1 and everything. The top and the bottom are virtually equal. It's great. I love what Bristol has become the last couple of years. This race, personally, I got to give it a 90% on the Groovy Gauge. It was phenomenal. Finish was great. I wish Dibenedetto could have held on, but ultimately it was really fun to see them maneuver lap traffic, see them close in, and then ultimately make the pass at the end. It was a very dramatic race. The emotions were high afterwards. I got to give it a 90%. It was another very, very good Bristol race. But let me know what you guys think. I know the race was a couple days ago. It's been a little while now, but let me know what you guys thought about Bristol. Wish I could have talked about it more, but I've just been so freaking busy traveling and moving around and everything. But after this week, probably next week, things should kind of feel back to normal a little bit. Might have a slightly different studio setup, but we'll have to wait and see there. Anyway, thanks guys for watching. I appreciate it a ton. Remember to follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter. Big thank you to my Patreon supporters: Michael Harrison, at You Is The Stars, Mentally Defective, Cameron James, John Koblenz, Jason Arlong, Wesley Donaldson, Isaac Dennison, Matthew Koulopoulos, Pepe Lucius, Jeremy Conkling, Joey DiMachino, Emilio Garcia, Sky Racing Forums, Bryce Schumacher, and the rest of these incredible Patreon supporters. I couldn't do this without the support I get from all of you guys. I couldn't have gone to Bristol and documented that whole thing, met a bunch of fans, if it wasn't for the support I get from you guys. So I hope you enjoy the video I upload here in a day or so. I couldn't do it without you, so thank you a ton for your continued support. And that's gonna do it. Thank you all so much for watching. I didn't mention it earlier, but Bristol TV ratings were up this year compared to last year, and I know that place seats like 150, 160,000. There was probably at least 120,000 there, so shades of old NASCAR right there. It was an incredible weekend. I feel like NASCAR's in a very good place, and it's very fun to be making these videos and to having all the opportunities I've had recently. Wouldn't be possible without the support I've gotten from all of you guys for years. We're also getting close to 100,000 subscribers. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? You guys are the best. Thank you guys for watching. We got some more videos planned later this week. See you guys again very, very soon. Bye-bye, everyone.